So thanks for joining. Today we're going to be talking about the new measure for the Medicare Beneficiary Quality Improvement Project program. So for the FLEX program, and this is going to be on the safe use of opioids, concurrent prescribing. I'm Erin Ackelstead. I work for Mountain Pacific here in Alaska, and also here in Alaska representing Mountain Pacific is Kyla Newland. And her background is she's a pharmacist, so she's going to kind of be our subject matter expert today. We also have Erica Alm, who has supported a lot of the critical access hospitals here in Alaska with reporting and data abstraction and through any CART challenges, HARP challenges, NHSN reporting. So she'll be talking a little bit about that today too. So I am going to turn it over to Kyla.
Thanks, Erin. And thanks everybody for joining today. So I'm going to be talking about the core measure, patient safety measure, safe use of opioids, concurrent prescribing. So we can go to the next slide and we'll look at the reporting period. So it is a calendar year from January 1 to December 31st. This measure is newly added to the FLEX program for the calendar year 2025. And our deadline for submission is going to be February 28th, which will be of 2026. And of note, in relation to this measure, reporting is encouraged for 2024, but it is not officially added until 2025. So just so that you know, and if you want to get started, you can submit your data earlier, and that is encouraged. So we can go to the next slide. So the measure description. So what does concurrent prescribing mean and who are we measuring? So it's going to be patients 18 years and older, prescribed or continued on 2 or more opioids, or an opioid and a benzodiazepine. So when we're looking at the opioids that are included in the measure, it's going to be your Schedule 2 and 3 opioids. So that's going to be most of your pain medicines that you see on a regular basis. That's going to be hydrocodone, oxycodone, morphine, fentanyl, all of those. And then additionally, the Schedule 3s, you add in their codeine. And of note there, tramadol is not included in the measure because it's a Schedule 4. So I know that's used fairly frequently, so that is a common question that I've seen kind of as this measure is rolled out. And then for benzodiazepines, those are all going to be Schedule 4, and those are going to be lorazepam, alprazolam, diazepam, and chlordiazepam epoxide are probably the most commonly used benzodiazepines. And as we will see, this on the next slide, the rationale for this measure is basically the clinical prescribing guidelines for opioids were updated in 2022. And so there is many iterations in those recommendations that people should not be on benzodiazepines and opioids and multiple opioids if possible. We do know that the fatal overdose rate if patients are on an opioid and a benzodiazepine is 10 times higher. And so just keeping with our patient safety and reducing those adverse events, it is an important thing to look at. It is noted in a lot of other recommendations from different pain organizations and clinical recommendations that combination should be avoided if possible. We can go to the next slide. So the relevance, there was the National Quality Forum met to look at rural health priorities, and this came up as a rural health priority. So they decided to add it because it was feasible to collect with a low burden to clinicians in the ECQM. Opioid use disorder actually has a disproportionate amount of patients in rural areas, and so focusing on the critical access hospitals made sense. But it's also noted, due to small numbers, we might have low case volume in this reporting, which is true of all of these measures, of course. We can go to the next slide. So this is just a little graphic to kind of show you a patient that's on 1 opioid versus a patient that's on 2 opioids, and the increase you see in the overdose deaths. And then on the next slide, you'll see the increase, that 10-time increase that I mentioned if a patient's on an opioid and a benzodiazepine. So you can see the green line as if they're just on a benzodiazepine, and then the yellow line as if it's combined with an opioid. So significant numbers there, increasing patients' risk. We can go to the next slide. So this measure is currently included in the Medicare Promoting Interoperability Program. And so it has been, I don't know how long it's been in that portion, but now adding it to the Flex program. And for the interoperability, the PI program, they are required to do 3 self-selected measures out of 13 available ECQMs, and 1 required measure is safe use of opioids under the Promoting Interoperability Program. So that's just showing kind of the alignment there. We can go to the next slide. So here's our numerator and denominator. Basically, this is just going to measure patients that are discharged on this combination. So either 2 opioids together or an opioid plus a benzodiazepine. And it is going to be those folks 18 and older. And it's basically just going to look at the proportion of patients discharged on that combination. We can go to the next slide. Exclusions. So as we see with many of these recommendations for pain management, we are going to exclude those folks that are on hospice or palliative care. And so those are exclusions. And I know Erica will talk about those, how those are included in the measure set. We can go to the next slide. This just kind of reiterates which population we're looking at. Like I said, it's going to be 18 and older on those combination of medicines. And we can go to the next slide. So Erica's going to kind of talk about the technicalities of reporting. And so this just gives you the data source and data collection approach. And she will talk about the specifics of that. And I just wanted to kind of bring it back and see how you folks can use this data. Why is this data important? What can you do with it? So there are going to be patients that are going to be on these combination of medicines that may have been on for a long time, and you may not be able to, get your rate to 0. But there are ways that you can look at therapy with benzodiazepines and opioids or double opioid therapy, and consider tapering. You can consider changing patients to different anxiety medicine if they're using the benzos for anxiety, which is probably the most common reason that they're used. And so it's just giving you those options, really doing that risk assessment for those patients and seeing if you can make some changes in their drug therapy to reduce their risk of overdose. And also of mention, something that a lot of hospitals are doing, and I don't know if any of you folks have done yet or implemented in your facilities, but opioid stewardship. And there are some really good guides out there to kind of guide you through developing an opioid stewardship program. And I didn't put those on my resources, but I will put those in the chat for you to access. And Mountain Pacific is available to help you work through those if that is something that you are interested in, and that will help drive that measure down as well. So I think that's all I have. If you guys have any questions.
I think we have some time at the end too for questions.
Okay.
So we'll
yeah, I'll
just
put
jump
those
right in.
stewardship resources in the chat for everybody too.
Great, thanks.
Okay, so now we're going to get into reporting the data. So the data is electronically extracted from a hospital's EHR. The data is extracted to be in a QRDA Category 1 file format. So on the right-hand side, you'll see the data elements that are listed there. And these data elements will be important for your vendor or health IT department to help construct the files for reporting. Also, with these data elements that are listed here, in a other slide that we have, a resource slide, we have a link to the ECQI Resource Center page. And when you go there, you can click on these individual ones and it'll provide you some more information on each one. Next slide, please. So to start to prepare for reporting, you will start with Q1 of the calendar year. And some things that you want to do is you want to confirm the health information technology is certified by the Office of the National Coordinator of Health IT to the 2015 Edition Cures update criteria. And to also confirm that the QRDA Category 1 files are constructed per the most current calendar year requirements. And you can find that in the implementation guide. Also, it's a good idea to just go out to the HQR system with your HARP account and just take a look out there at the navigation page so that you're ready to go when it opens up to report the data. Next slide, please. So you'll want to go out to the navigation menu and HQR with your HARP account and just take a look of where you'll submit the data, and I'll walk you through in the next couple slides on how you'll go about doing that. Next slide, please. Okay, so when you come in there, you're going to go ahead and click on Data Submissions and locate the ECQM tab. You'll click on File Upload, and then you'll have two options. You'll have Test and Production. And you can choose Test if you kind of just want to upload it and maybe just make sure that your files are in acceptable format, just kind of like a test run. And then once you're ready to go, your files are ready to go, you'll choose Production. And then you'll click on Select Files, and that will take you to where your batch files are housed on your computer. And once you load the files, the system will process them, and then you'll receive a confirmation email letting you know that they've been submitted. Next slide, please. And then to review the processing status of your files, from the dashboard menu, you can click on Data Results and then click on ECQM, and then the page will change for you. Next slide, please. So it automatically, when you come to this screen, it will just automatically default to files. And underneath there for program, you'll choose IQRPI and production for submission, and you'll click select, and then it'll change the screen. And then that's where you're going to see the files. Now, when it's ready to be viewed, it'll pop up, of course, with a green check mark. It'll say ready. And then you can download error reports. And so what you can do with the error reports is you can share those with your vendor or your IT department, and then they can take a look and see maybe what might have caused any issues with your measure submission. Next slide. And then to locate any rejected files for revision and resubmission, you can choose the Accuracy tab. And then again, you'll choose the IQRPI for program, the production for submission, and then the quarter that you uploaded the data for. You'll select that, and then what it'll show you is it's going to go ahead and show the total files submitted, and it'll break it down by how many were accepted and rejected. And then this you can actually export for your files as a CSV report. Next slide, please. Also, to verify the submission and generate the program credit report. So from that dashboard menu, there's an option to choose program reporting and program credit. And this is where you'll select the discharge quarter, and it'll generate that report for you. And then on the report, it actually shows like all of the measures, all the ECQM measures, but it'll have the submission status, the date of the last submission. And this is another report that you can export to keep for your records as well. Next slide, please. And resources available to assist you with your reporting. So we've got the links here for the implementation guide, sample files. So, I mean, these things will help you with creating your QRDA file for reporting. And another really good resource is the data submission guide. This basically takes you through everything, getting the data, submitting the data, everything that we've discussed here on this presentation. So that's another good resource. Next slide, please. So publicly reported on Care Compare. So this measure is going to start being publicly reported in October 2025 to reflect the measurement period of January 1st through December 31st, 2024. Next slide. And I think this one is for Kyla.
Yeah, those are my resources. There's a couple that I'll call out. This expert to expert to webinar. It's actually not the webinar, it's just a Q&A session from the webinar, but it's got a lot of really good questions and answers to clarify the measure. And then I think some of the other ones might be duplicate, but just a lot of information.
Great. Well, thank you, Kyla and Erica, for sharing that information on safe use of opioids. I want to open it up to the group now. If there's any questions on the measure or how to report or when to report, where to report, we're available for questions. All right. Well, if there are no questions, let me just make sure there's nothing in the chat. We will get the slides sent out. We're going to get the recording sent out. And then also, we just wanted to reiterate that when you start collecting this data and reporting it, if you need assistance, Erica, Kyla, and myself are to help you through understanding the measure and reporting the measure. So we're happy to support you at any time during your reporting. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and we'll be sure to get all of these resources out to everyone as soon as we can. Have a great day. Thank you. Happy holidays.
Bye.